It is a great night. You can tell he is right behind the Lord, following the direction God gives him to go. I saw that moment at another place. When I was at Oral Roberts University, Oral Roberts was stepping down one of the years I was there. And so, did they get handouts? I don't think they did. So he's got them. So anyway, I was there the year that Oral Roberts stepped down and Richard Roberts took his place. I watched him the year before, and it was the second year I was there that he was actually changing who was going to be in the leadership and what was going to happen. Now everybody may know that Richard Roberts had gone wild, going to Vegas, singing, and he has a beautiful voice. And so he was having quite an entertainment career out in Vegas. And then he got right with God. God touched him and he came home. And I watched him sit next to his father. And I watched him never take the lead, never take the limelight, never take credit. I watched him give all the credit to his father. Never missed a time. It stood out to me so much that he was so submissive to his father. When he came back, he'd been changed so much from where he was to what he became. When his dad would mess up, he would cover him. When something happened, he would just make it better. He would make it not have a problem that it could have been. So then came the day that Oral was supposed to step down, and Richard was going to be put into office. And I watched the procession. I thought about in the old Jewish times some of the processions they would have in changing kings or changing the chief priests and all the things they would do, and it was all there. And somebody said, well, that's a lot of show. No, they were honoring the one stepping down and honoring the one coming into place. And it wasn't something about being a show, because there was such great responsibility. Our pastor and our board have so much responsibility for our church. Sometime when you're walking by them, it might do you good to say, thank you for all the things that you sort out that we never know about, that you give us the best answer and take care of us. I'm telling you, they do things that you and I will never know to help us make it through times. And so I couldn't encourage you more than to say thank you to them when you see them. Because they do amazing things behind the doors, figuring out finances, figuring out, even when we were buying the building recently, they sorted through all that, got us the very best price. All the things that went on, they kept maintaining so this church would be balanced, safe, and financially secure. So they have done that for us. They're amazing. And so I've watched that, both in the church I was at before and here even more. But when I think about what Jesus is doing, he is the example of reaching sinners. And so we're going to look at this story tonight, because I think there's some things in here that really matter. So I'm going to start, and we're going to read a little ways, and we'll stop for a minute. And starting in chapter 4, verse 1 of John, it says, the Pharisees heard that Jesus was baptizing more disciples than John, although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. When the Lord learned of this, he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Why would he leave? Because he's passing the baton. You see, he's got to have other people do the work, because he's limited on the time he's going to be there. And so John was doing fine. So Jesus stepped back because he wanted us to be the ministers, to reach people. So he stepped back. Interesting thing for what happened, though. Verse 4 says, now he had to go through Samaria. Samaria is a direct line from Jerusalem up to Galilee. It's about 70 miles. But because the Jews think the Samaritans, which means a Jew married a Gentile, that's what Samaria was about. Because of that, what would happen is that they would just reach it. So would you take it? What would happen is that they would go about 30 miles extra out of the way, across the Jordan and up the other side and back. Because when you go through the mountains, right through Samaria, you go right through the thick. But Jesus went right through it. He could have gone 30 miles out of the way and taken a couple extra days to walk it, but he went right through where the sinners are. The people that the Jews wouldn't touch, didn't want to talk to, communicate. So when you think about this story, he went where sinners were. See, that's what Pastor keeps talking about. We have to go where sinners are. So we're going to look through that for a minute. So let's continue. Verse 5. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about the 6th hour. Now, if you look at a Roman clock, 6 hours, 6 p.m. But if you look at a Jewish clock, where they start from, they start at sunrise. If you started the Jewish clock, it was noon. Somewhere around ballpark June, about noon. And he was tired from walking all that distance. And so he also knew something else. He knew that he could go to a place where sinners were in public and didn't have to go into their deep holes of their problem. See, we want to pay attention to that. Pastors talked about that as one of the steps of how to stay righteous when you're talking and reaching somebody, how to stay out of getting caught in their sin. So it says he came to the town. It's in verse 7. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into town to buy food. This is a one-on-one encounter, just like you and me. If I walked up to Paul and started a conversation with him, that's what Jesus is doing. Just a simple conversation. Would you give me some water? There's nothing big about that. We would think there was nothing to it. But the woman knew from the very beginning, because of his dress, what was going on. 9 says, the Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew. I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. He crossed the line. How dare you go out and help somebody with something that seems not proper? Did you know there was 10 commandments Moses brought down from the mountain, and there are 613 laws that the Jewish leaders created out of 10 commandments? Because I'm going to control how you live, how you breathe, what you do. And Jesus didn't pay attention to any of that, and he walked up and just started talking to them. That is what we have to realize. Jesus just started talking to this woman. She knew that he shouldn't be talking to her. She knew, because she knew her place. Because the Jewish person she was married to, because that's the only people who lived there, unless they were Gentiles already, and then there were heathens. So nothing but sinners according to the Jewish law. There were no Jewish families with Jewish wives and husbands and Jewish children. They didn't live there. It was like being a tax collector. You know, and that's one of the worst things people thought about somebody if they were a tax collector. So when I think about the things they said, he went to Samaria, to a town. He purposely went in the middle of sinners. In the road for where bandits are, Jesus knew he was on his Father's mission. He was doing what God was showing him, and he was heading to do it, and he trusted God. Does that mean I test the Lord and go places I shouldn't? No. I wait to for sure know that God's showing me. Sometimes if I'm going into a challenged place, I go talk to pastors, to somebody who's a mentor, to try to sort out what's best. To be sure I'm hearing God. When I came through seminary, I already had years with God. But I knew that the new steps I was walking were bigger than what I had experienced. Have any of you ever had that deal? Because if you think about it, since God doesn't leave you where you are, he's always moving you to a new level. Amen. And so why do we think we grow past having somebody advise us, help us with wisdom and insight? There's nobody that passes it. Pastor has people that guide him. I have people, pastors, one of mine, that guide me, and some others that guide me. But the truth is, you never get past needing to check yourself and be sure I'm not a lone wolf and I'm doing what I want to do as opposed to hearing God. We have to have that balance in us when we move in that direction. And he was close enough. He was outside their deep sin because he was at the well. Not in where they were living in sin, but he was at the well, a common place, a safe place. And he met her there. And he started talking to her. That's important. So we don't have to go into the bar and get them, because if they're in the bar, they're not listening for God.
That's right.
When they come out the door, they might can listen, but while they're inside, they're caught in the moment. And if they get to a point that they realize they shouldn't be there, they're coming out the door. That's what's going to happen. So you have to realize there are places that you can go help somebody, and they're listening, and places you can go that you think they're going to hear you because you think you got what they need to get them out of there, but they're blinded. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. You and I have to realize there are times that the devil has us deceived, and we've all been there, that I have to realize sometimes I have to wait for him to come out of the hole of that and make a difference from there.
Amen.
But we get close enough to show the light. Close enough to show them there's an answer, a better way. And that's what we all look for. But Jesus was looking for a specific person. I can't tell you in school, when I was a seminary, how many people said, oh, God, show me, I'm going to have this great ministry. I'm going to have this great ministry. Thousands upon thousands of people. I said, well, what are you doing now for God? And they said, well, I'm waiting for it to arrive. I want to tell you, ministry doesn't show up till you get up and start doing it.
Amen.
You have to get involved. I don't care if it's helping Ruth. By the way, she has a new challenge coming to her, because the third Thursday of this month, we're going to be giving food out, and we're going to fill up with a lot of people looking for food. And so we need extra volunteers. So if you're looking for something to do on the third Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning, or does it start at 9? When does it start? 10 o'clock. If you're looking for something to do, that's a place you can start. Just by being a volunteer. Maybe all you're going to do is carry packages out to the car. That's just as important as the one who greets them. Every step of it's important. So that's something that's coming up real soon for us. So don't miss that. But you look for a specific person. Normally, men reach out to men. But he was listening for God to show him the right person to reach. And we'll look at that as we go on. Let's continue on. In verse 10, Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that is asking you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Jesus has presented a challenge to this woman, and she's in the natural. When you approach a sinner, they have no clue about spiritual. They have no clue. Don't be surprised. But Jesus has put something out there to see if he can slide through that shell that's in the way. And only the Holy Spirit can open that so that happens. Verse 11 says, Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw this deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself, as did also his son and his flocks and his herd? You see, you had an exchange. The fish side that Christians use, and for years was, one would draw one half of the fish, and the other person who was a Christian would draw the other half of the fish, and that's how they knew who they were, because a line in the sand at a slope is nothing until you bring the other point and circle it and bring it up and make the tail as well. So nobody knew what they were doing. You have to realize that you are going to give signs to people that don't have a clue. You're going to have people that are going to be so natural, and you get frustrated like, can't you see this? And no, they can't. It takes patience when you're walking with someone who's a sinner who has not had their eyes open. It takes patience when you walk with somebody who hears and turns away and forgets what you said, and you've done it 25 times. Do it 26. Do it 50. Do it until they get there. If you didn't get to come to the luncheon, Kevin read a story about John, the Revelator, read a story about him that we don't know for sure if it's absolutely true or not, but the amazing part of it is that the story shows the principle of what Jesus is doing. He stays right with her. So he challenged her, and she came back with the right kind of question. I'm interested. What is this? What's different here? And he said, in verse 13, Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water will still be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life. Now he's told her a spiritual principle, a truth, that she doesn't have a clue. And see how she goes back to her natural. It says, the woman said, Sir, Give me this water so I will not get thirsty and have to come here to draw again. She didn't understand what he was saying. He didn't make sense to her. He's going to have to work more. Whether that's in one session or 50 sessions with that person, you have to be okay when they don't get it. Until you become their friend to where you stay around with long enough, then you start to go get through the walls and the barriers and the things. This is where we begin to reach somebody and make a difference for what God has for them. Don't be frustrated when they don't get it. When they go back to the natural, let it go, be at peace, and just walk with them. Sometimes I know we all get tired and say, man, I'm done with this person. You're never done with a person until God says you're done. And the last time I checked, I never saw Jesus turn away from one. We had people who turned away from Jesus, but Jesus never turned away from one. And so we have to keep our focus, because if we're going to become friends of sinners, we have to get this focus that even though I come talk to you about Jesus and tell you this amazing truth, my amazing story of my salvation or your salvation, it's not over till they get it. If I have to tell it 50 times, it's not over until they go like, really? And they come alive and begin to understand the difference. So we have to do those things and not hesitate. And so she talked to him back in the natural, so that's where she took herself. But somewhere in the midst of that, we have to really offer what they need. We have to say the things that they either don't know they need or are afraid to say they need. Maybe their setting at home is such that if I ever told somebody I was believing in Jesus, I'd be put out of the house. Happens all the time. People, because you're going to be different than me, I'm going to push you away. I had that happen over and over. I had my own sister absolutely reject me. She told me I belonged in a loony bin. That's what she told me. She wrote it on paper. She mailed back my letter because I was in school. And the first couple of weeks, I put a letter to dear brother and sister. Actually, it was all my brothers and sisters in the Lord, and I sent her a copy of it. She said, you're crazy. You need to be insane something. There's something wrong with you. And it didn't bother me because I understood where she was. She just didn't get it. But that's okay. There's a day coming. Because Acts 16:31 says, if you believe, you and your whole household shall be saved. So my sister is saved. She may not know it yet, but she's saved. Because my God won't give up on her. If you think you're persistent, if you think you're a person that sticks with it, we don't have a clue how God sticks with it. But God sees the real problem. He has an easier time walking with us because he really knows what our problems are, what our hurts are, what our challenges are, why we're afraid, why we don't want to let go, why we think we have to hold something that's causing us nothing but disaster. He understands all that, and I'm thankful he does because he helps us so much. So Jesus is going to take her back, help her get back to the spiritual. So he says, he told her in 16, he says, go call your husband and come back. I have no husband, she said. Jesus got her. He said to her, you are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you have now is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true. He has just told her something that most everybody didn't know to a certain extent. He has done something that made it personal. He got into her life. That doesn't mean we become busybodies. Doesn't mean I saw you at the bar last week. I saw you doing this last week or that. The point is, he helped her realize, come back to the spiritual and understand there's a God who sees all and never forgets it until you ask for forgiveness. And then all my wrongs are gone. Oh, what a God we have. What a God. So here's her revelation. Sir, the woman said, I can see that you are a prophet. Our father worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem. Okay, it's still natural in some ways, because she's still talking about going to a building. We have a building, but here's the church. It's in us. So whatever building we're in is the church when we stand there. So I have to choose the right times, the right ways, because of certain things that go on. I have to be sure I'm careful about how I do that. But we are the church. And so Jesus is going to catch her now. He says, Jesus declared, "Believe me, woman, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem." Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know. Stay there a second. You worship what you don't know. We worship what we do know. That's the difference from somebody getting revelation to get saved. To find out that we have this amazing God. And so somewhere you know what we're worshiping. They don't. Love them through it. And so he continues. He says, we worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews, because God chose to come through Abraham. That's why it's through the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and has come, and has now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for they are the worshipers the Father is seeking. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and truth. He's talking about the rapture. He's talking about when we go to heaven. When it's over, not just when we die because we've lived our full length of life, whatever that may be for each of us, but he's talking about the rapture. You will not either worship on this mountain nor in Jerusalem, because we'll be gone. We'll be worshiping God in spirit. We will be there with him. You want something exciting to help you through difficult times? Don't matter what I walk through on this earth, I win. So do you. I don't have to even think twice about what's going to happen. I know when we get to the end, God's got us. If he says he'll never leave us or forsake us, he'll forgive us, he'll help us, he'll stay with us. Even when we mess up, he'll love us through it and bring us back. It says that in Philippians 1:6. For he who began a good work in you, he'll Christ's return. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. That means that we're not going to all be fixed until the day we go to meet Jesus. So if you think you're going to get perfect and be able to live the last 10 years of your life without any problems, forget it. Does not happen. It's always been a journey with God. It's never been about what's going on. It's a journey with God. It's at a point that we realize that every day I'm going to get up and say, God, I'm up today. Thank you for life and breath. Now help me walk the road I have today. I'm going to get up tomorrow morning. I'm going to do the same thing. Forgive me for my sins. Help me walk it out. And we're going to walk and we're going to watch for the things he does. So the lady, suddenly her heart is opened and she comes to realization. The woman said, I know that the Messiah, called the Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. Then Jesus declared, I who speak to you am he. Jesus became a friend of a sinner. One person reached to that person, touched their life in a way that was able to. Here's a fact about your story. Don't tell everybody your whole story. You'll tell parts of your story to certain people, but sooner or later you have to close the door. We don't get any brownie points for telling how bad our life was before Christ. If I have something that relates to Kevin here, then I'm going to tell him that part of my life. I had some issues like that. God brought me through it. I found answers. But I don't have to tell him from the time I was 3 to my age now. That'd take a long time. But you'll find pieces that God will show that you have in common. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 3 says that comfort those with the comfort that you have received. The things that I have been delivered from, the things I have had wrong teaching on that I've gotten right, now those things I'm going to comfort other people. But that doesn't require my whole story. I don't know about you, but I'm going to take a wild guess. You even have to raise your hand and smile, so tell me. Every one of you, matter of fact, every one of you in here have some part of your life you wouldn't want another person to have a clue about. See, we're all the same. So share the parts that apply that will help that person, help them see through that they can have hope, that the same God that set us free can set them free. That makes such a difference. You can follow on the notes, but just some things in my heart just keep coming on this passage as we're talking, so we're just going to keep going. So the woman says, 19, Sir, the woman said, I see that you're a prophet. So her eyes have been opened some. Why do you think you're going to go from totally sinner lost to totally saved in a heartbeat? Don't be surprised if it takes a little more. Don't be surprised. Just walk with him. That's how Pastor got saved. Somebody walked with him time after time and did things, and it made a difference. So each of you, none of us, I may have had a sudden moment that my revelation came, but when I look back, I found lots of seeds that God was planting in my life to get me to a point I could have that revelation. We count the moment of our revelation as, wow, I just had a conversion. And we forget how much planting and watering and watching it grow happened before I actually got saved. People, I'll never forget when I was in Maine and I was in the middle of a mess. And I met this guy who was a contractor working at the hotel that I was managing. And I met him, and he liked to play chess, and so did I. And so sure enough, he always put this one tape on. I love this tape, just Christian tape. And we just sat there and played chess and talked and talked. That man had more to do with my salvation than probably anybody else the rest of the way. Even though my moment of revelation was amazing, that man sowed seed after seed after seed, and I kept going to see him. I couldn't get enough of him because there was something different about him that I wanted. So even though we have that moment of, wow, the Lord's great, there were seeds that God was sowing because of prayers that people were praying, reaching us. Being a friend to a sinner is everything that we need in the things we do. Jesus said, believe me, woman, in 21. Believe me, woman, a time is coming when you will worship the Father. Let's see, where am I? No, he just finished 26. I'm sorry. So the woman came to a point that she knew something was different. 27. Just then his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman. Now think about this. This is his disciples. These are the ones that believe in him, and they're holding to the old Jewish laws. They weren't fixed either. You want to have peace that you're not perfect and you have company? The disciples are the same way. Even at the Last Supper, which one of us will be the greatest? Which one of us is going to be on top? Who's going to be the most important when Jesus is gone? So it is a journey, completely a journey all the way through. So continue on, but no one asked, what do you want? Or why are you talking to her? They knew, but they had their prejudice and their teachings that had put them in this box that said you can't talk to a Samaritan, especially a woman. That was, there was 3 things I remember, some of them, maybe it's 5, that a Jewish man would say every morning. Thank you that I'm a male. Thank you I'm not a woman. Thank you that I forgive what they all are. But one of them was the fact that they're not a woman. Point blank. They were thankful they weren't a woman. That's what the men would pray back then. So they had so many traditions that they had to break through. You're doing the same thing with the sinner. You're having to break through all of those barriers that somebody has drilled into themselves, or lack of teaching causes them to assume things. If I don't know, I assume something, and that becomes truth, because who do you trust the most? Yourself. Till I find out that I was myself's biggest problem, I don't have a clue. So the disciples are struggling with what Jesus is doing because he's gotten out of their picture of what they think he should be doing. Keep doing what Jesus did. Don't worry about what people think. If I even began to tell you the things that the pastoral staff does during the week, that most people never have a clue. You go, really? Ministering is not on the pulpit. That's a small part. It's the all week long that we do things all week. So let's go back to the lady for a minute. Verse 28. Then leaving her water bottle, they don't do that. The woman went back to the town, said to the people, come see a man who told me everything I did. Could this be the Christ? They came out of the town and made their way toward him. Do you understand? You have to stop looking at one person as one person. Because if this person gets saved and finds the answer, where are they going back to their friends? And all their friends that you associate with are like you. So it means that this person's friends are all sinners. She was the right person because when she changed, what happened was that she went back to her whole community, and because it was such a different, we have a miracle in our midst with Axel's healing. Because a week before, he laid on his shoulder and couldn't move, couldn't function. And he's up here doing worship. Hallelujah. See, we had a miracle happen here. We all look for those big miracles. The miracle is every day we have food, water, lights, a place to live. That's part of miracles right there. Breathing. No matter what we're walking through, we have miracles that happen every day. But we look for the big ones with the parting of the Red Sea. Axel's one of those parties of the Red Sea. There's a lot more that will go on about that before we're done. But I have to tell you, she went back to her people, to her other sinners, and said something. So don't worry about, did I get the most important person? Question is, God, show me which one you want me to touch that's ready to hear. Amen. It's not about, do they have enough money? Do they have this? Do they have that? Can I get a stage where I get thousands of people in front of me? You know, Jesus isn't the reason people came to him, because people wouldn't know about it if other people weren't talking about it. It wasn't Jesus who made a stage. It was the people that said, come see a man that changed my life. Come see a man that had my answers. Come see this, come see that. They came because of miracles like Axel, miracles like you and I. Every one of us are a miracle. It doesn't have to be the parting Red Sea to draw somebody just walking with him and seeing the difference. It makes a difference. So the lady believed and she went to get others and bring them back. Verse 31. Meanwhile, his disciples urged him, Rabbi, eat something. This is where the challenge came in. Passion. But he said to them in verse 32, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. The disciples were still learning. They were still grieving. They didn't have a clue on all things going. But now he's got a moment to teach them and guide them and show them how to be better witnesses, disciples of him to others. He says, my food, says Jesus, it is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. I talked about that earlier tonight in the offering. Finish the way you started. It's easy to start anything. It's a lot harder to finish the way you started. Because when I start, I'm so excited, I'm pumped, I'm ready to go. But you go down the ways a little and become a little less forgetful of when I got saved and what that was like, and when I got this miracle, and now it's been a few months or a year, and so that's kind of fallen off, and I begin to forget the things. If you have that problem, write them down. And go back and read them regularly. Read them so you keep focus in your life to the things that you're doing. It's important. Verse 35. Do you not say 4 months more, and then the harvest? I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. Even now the reaper draws his wages. Even now the harvest, he harvests the crops for eternal life, so that the sower and the reaper may be glad together. Dude, he was talking back then about harvesting people to Jesus. Harvesting people to be restored to God, to have life and eternal life, to be able to worship not on a mountain and not in Jerusalem, but in spirit and truth, and worship the true God and be with him. He's telling them there's so much more for us to do. Continues on 37. Thus the saying, one sows, another reaps in this truth. I send you to reap what you have not worked for. Others, why have we not worked for it? It's because God's planted the seed that will open their heart so that they can deal with that. So they begin to open it. You'll never reach somebody and they get saved because of you. It'll be because God opened their heart for them to see that and deal with that. And it makes all the difference in the world. Those are the things that have to happen. So somewhere in the midst of that, those are the things that we have to do. And it says, others, I send you to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work. You have reaped the benefits of their labor. We have people that come in here on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights and Sunday nights and anytime we have some kind of function. And the truth is that God has been working them long before we got to them. I'm just thankful to be part of the harvester. I'm just thankful whether we're in the first hour planting, tearing up the ground, or planting, or watering it, that at the end when the harvest comes, God does that every time. God's the only one that does that. It makes a difference for you. He's trying to tell them, you've got to be friends with sinners. How is somebody going to get saved if we don't send somebody? And He's sending us, every one of us, in our natural life to cross paths with people that are hurting, broken, and feel destroyed. Here's the results. This is why you reach one. This is why you go out and see the one God shows you. Because here's what happens. 39. Many of the Samaritans from the town believed in Him because of the woman's testimony. He told them everything I did. So when the Samaritans came to Him, they urged Him to stay with them, and He stayed 2 days. And because of His words, many more became believers. They said to the woman, we no longer believe just because of what you said. Now we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this man is the Savior of the world. You see, we have to understand what we have to do as belonging to Christ. We have to understand the importance of reaching others. We have to understand safe settings for going into our sinners and becoming friends with them, but yet not getting in the middle of their mess. I'll stand out here and help you, and I'll show you a light, and you can come this way so you can get out of it, but I'm not going to go climb in there to whatever that mess is. I'm not going to go sit down with you, and I'm going to drink a Coke while you drink a beer, or whatever the setting is. I don't care what the sin is. The point is you'll never reach somebody when they're sitting in the middle of their problem. They have to want to get out, and so they say, why don't you come out and let's talk outside? Why don't you come out? You don't get in the middle of theirs, and Pastor will talk about it a great deal more as we go about how to manage what you're doing and how you're doing it. But somewhere in there we have to realize that the fields are ripe for harvest. They really are. We have to pay attention that they're so ripe, they're right in front of you for us for picking. But I have to listen to the Lord for which one to talk to, which one to touch, which one to help. I don't have to struggle with it either. Elijah was inside the mountain, and they brought the fire and brought the wind and everything else, and he was never in the midst of any of those. But he came with a small, still voice. It is in your peace of knowing I'm called by God to reach people. My job is just to have my heart open to listen for God. When He says, and all of a sudden you see a person at a cash register that suddenly you see them overwhelmed. I said, looks like you're having a bad day. Yes, I've had this happen, this happen, this happen. You've all crossed that. Wow. Would you allow me to pray for you? I found a lot of help for me when people have prayed for me. Oh, please. They're begging. Some will say, no, thank you. I don't want that. That's okay. They're not ready. Let it go right there. Because we don't want to create a worse enemy. We don't want to be a bad example to them that I'm going to push on you. I'm just going to keep loving you where you are. God's the one who brings the path. And if you see somebody for the moment and leave and you never see them again, that's okay, because God's got more people to put in their path at the right time for those who are going to sow seeds, water, and cause the harvest to happen. Just do your part and be content. Be thankful that you're allowed to be part of it. He could have done it all himself and been done, and we would have never been born, and it could have been over a long time ago. But because He wants us to choose by our heart, that choice does make a difference. I have to go back to John 9:4 that Pastor stands on for this year for us. We must work the works of Him who sent me and be busy with His business while it's daylight. Night is coming when no man can work. We have to realize we are called. I don't care when you see a person, when you sense God saying now, if you don't see something happen in a reasonable amount of time, come back a second day. Don't try to get all the way around the bases to home plate on the first day. Some people are ready at that moment, and everything falls. And some it takes time, you have to work it out. The call is Jesus has shown you the way to reach sinners, so go work for the kingdom. That's what we're about. Brother Greg, would you put on that tape, please? I got to tell you, some of you have reached people that you gave up on. Oh, I have to go back to them? The least we should be doing is praying for every person God puts us with. There are some that we're responsible for and some we're not. Sometimes you started in a door and it's not the door God has for you to go through to help that person because you're not the right person. God says this person will match up just right. But we have to reach a point, we ask God to help our antennas go up for our spirit to hear better the things of God. So when He says, turn into this office, talk to that person. That happened to me more times than I can count. I'd be in sales and walking down a hallway and he said, go in this office. I don't get any notice, just, okay, I go in the office. How you doing? But I'm expecting, are you expecting God to put somebody in your life that may need help, that may need guidance, that may need an answer? Are you expecting? See, what matters is that we have to get to a point that I expect God to talk all the time. I can tell you, where Amanda works, she crosses people ever so often that they just show up with a problem. She has opportunities in front of her all the time. Each of you do. Where Donna works, she's in front of people all the time. Each one of you have some circle that you go inside, and if you tell me that you stay home, you don't go anywhere, then here's what I'll tell you. I had an 88-year-old lady who was bound to a house, had a colostomy bag, wanted to go home to me. I was sitting just talking to her. She was watching TV, watching soap operas. And she said, I pray for that one and that one and that one. You'll never get to heaven if you're praying for people. And she couldn't stop praying. She had to. No sense in trying to stop doing something that you're made to do that comes out of your spirit, because you can't stop it. So just be who you are for God. And wherever you are, keep trying to reach or pray for people that God will. We're going to be sinners, friends of sinners, in a safe setting. And we're going to draw them to the light that's in us, and we find in this church and all the people here. We're constantly working out situations for people because God has people connected, and we keep finding, well, go see that person, go see that person. We find answers and direction and clothing and food and all the things that people have to have. Don't be afraid that an obstacle is so big that we can't help, because the least we'll do is guide them in a path that may get them to some help that could help them. Trust God. Don't try to see if you can see the end of the trail with that person. Just see, what am I supposed to do while I'm standing here? Am I planting a seed today? Am I watering? Or God, are you about to harvest? If you keep those things in focus, you realize it's always about God. We just have a part. He's allowing us to have a part. We are blessed. Stand with me, please, if you would. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Because we're in a church, because people are at different points, though I think I know most of the people in here, bow your heads a minute. If there's someone here that's been sorting out the pieces all this time and didn't have it right, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, then raise your hand. That's what I thought. I'm going to pray for us because I have a different prayer for us tonight, because we're all believers. Father, tonight, for every believer in this room, I pray that you turn up their ability to hear in the Spirit more than they've ever had it up. I pray clarity for them. I pray direction for every one of us. That, Father, we would be able to sense every time you have somebody for us to touch. Father, that we would no longer listen to our natural side or think we're not adequate, and just be who we're supposed to be and reach out and touch people. Just be a friend. Just start there and see what you do. You'll show us how far you brought them, if they're ready to be saved, if they're still planting seed, if they're growing, if we're just watering. Father, we're going to do the parts you show us and trust you with the end results for each person. And Lord, I'm going to thank you in advance for all the salvations, all the miracle healings, all the changed lives that will happen because we touched one person. We went somewhere and found one that you said, go touch this one. And we'll leave the multiplication to you. We'll leave the numbers to you. But you are the one who guides us in everything we do. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I love you all.